Hello, everyone. Thank you to the people who have joined in already. We're trying to just take out some time, maybe the next 2-3 minutes, to have more people joining the meeting before we officially go. Thanks for being the early birds. And please feel free to introduce yourself. My name is Emma Inyakong. I'm a program coordinator for Philanthropy Circuit and one of the conveners for the Nigeria chapter launch. Please use the chat to just tell us who you are, where you are joining us from, and what you do. And of course, if there are any questions you already have, we'd love to see them.
We've been together, coming up short, giving up never. We've been together, come along, come along, come along, come along. Man's made, blending it together. A world on fire can't last forever. We're gonna mend it together. A stitch in time is gonna save now. A stitch in time is gonna save now. And I wanna be a catalyst for change. Trying something different now. Wanna change the rules of the game.
I wonder if this is a great time. So we're 4 minutes in, and we could wait till maybe 5 past, and then we'll kick off proper. And by kick off proper, we mean like, because we do have presentations and then just discussions around the importance of Catalyst 2030 and the launch that we'll be having today, the reason why we're all here. So I'm hoping that many people as possible able to join in. So we have an amazing time. Then we would have a panel discussion, followed by an open discussion with chapter members and anyone who is interested in joining the chapter should of course go on. So basically this is the agenda. So a quick video from Gerald Billy Moria, who is the overall convener of Catalyst 2030 network, and then an introduction to Catalyst 2030 itself, and then the Africa chapter, and a look at the Nigeria chapter, our initial thoughts, and really this is sort of a co-creation launch because we hope that based on the discussions we have at the end of this launch, we're able to further add to the body of work and knowledge that we have in creating a vibrant Nigeria chapter. The panel discussion by our amazing guests, really looking forward to that session because it promises to really provide insights to how we can strengthen social entrepreneurship in Nigeria from a government angle, from the development sector angle, looking at newer forms of philanthropy, that Nigeria's enterprise entrepreneurship sector can take. We will be entertaining questions, so please keep them coming. If there are any points you would want specific responses or more general responses, we'll be happy to take notes of the questions and hand it over to our speakers. And then I know you're seeing a breakout rooms in the agenda, but it has been refined to be an open discussion. So we will be having an open discussion with everyone, really just tackling one or two questions around strengthening the Nigerian social entrepreneurship system, your thoughts as participants in the launch, as members of the chapter, what you think we could do, and how we think we could really catalyze, change within Nigerian sector. And of course, a closing but of course with more action points to follow afterwards. So Susanna should be doing something amazing with our screens right now.
Let me just share my screen again, and here we go.
Catalyst 2030 is a movement of social entrepreneurs and innovators embracing collective action to achieve the SDGs by the deadline of 2030. Our 1,500 members are active in 197 countries. By emphasizing collaborations, Catalyst 2030 is leveraging the power of the collective to accelerate real change in the lives of billions of people around the globe. What do our members say about Catalyst?
Catalyst 2030 is an invaluable global community of impact entrepreneurs.
Our relationship with Catalyst 2030 has really taught us the power of co-creation.
Join Catalyst 2030 and network, bond, and collaborate with our family members.
And I like the spirit of bringing change makers together to share and learn from each other.
Catalyst really understands the transformative nature of collaboration.
It's also a platform that can give us new tools and resources.
Catalyst 2030 has put my work on steroids.
But most importantly, to come up with solutions that are practical, ways where we can really make things happen, because social entrepreneurs are doers.
Are you a catalyst? Join us to achieve the SDGs.
Dear Catalyst, yay! Congrats on the launch of your country chapter. For me, it's truly, truly inspiring to see the membership come together to launch a chapter, because that's what shows the power of the collective, the power of all of us coming together, working together to see the change we wish to happen and to leverage our collective power to accelerate the achievement of the SDGs, to accelerate seeing the change in our country, to accelerate and to be able to make sure that we all work together to give every person in the world a great quality of life, to make every person feel cherished. And we can all do it together. So a big, big, big congrats to all for launching today. And it's being me, so welcome to the Catalyst family and a big hug. Yay, take care, bye. Dear Catalyst.
Over to you, Emma.
Thank you so much. And just where Roger had said, welcome to the launch, official launch of the Nigeria chapter of Catalyst 2030. I hope that you've had an amazing idea of what Catalyst 2030 as a network inspires and amplifies for social entrepreneurship globally. And really, this is what we're trying to also ensure it's done for the Nigeria chapter at a local level. We'll be going into the next phase, which is us just sharing insights across the chapter launch and then across Catalyst itself at the Africa chapter and then locally at the Nigeria chapter. So Susanna, if you could also put up the slides so we can follow, and I'll be handing over to Ife Umuna, co-moderator.
Thanks, Emma. Good afternoon. My name is Ife Umuna. I'm the co-CEO of Nourishing Africa. And I'm just going to take you through, my network says it's unstable. Can you confirm that you can hear me? Okay, great. Just waiting for the slides to show. Great, I can see them. So I'm just going to take you through Catalyst and why we're here, what we do, and why it's such an exciting initiative and something that we should all be part of. If you are not a Catalyst member, as the video said, please join up. We'll provide those details in the chat box below. But why Catalyst 2030? As you may know, the slide has disappeared again. Okay, why Catalyst 2030? We know that we will not achieve our SDGs by 2092, the way we're going. And this is due to the lack of resources, minimal collaboration, and working in silos. We're very disconnected from, as the doers, the funding models that are requested for by funders, as well as the needs of what we as the entrepreneurs need are often very different. And we also lack a voice in decision-making processes. So we as Catalyst
I feel like we might have lost Ify for a second, but while we're waiting on her, because we do understand that there might be some time limits to the session. And just fun fact, there are about 3 other chapters launching simultaneously at this time. So we're hoping that we're able to really have an amazing session, and then which will culminate in the Africa Forward session. Oh, if it's back, please go ahead.
Apologies, connection. So essentially, as Catalyst 2030, we really want to connect people and create collaboration across the globe to really accelerate the work that we're all doing. And at Catalyst, we really pride ourselves in saying that it's a bottom-down approach in ensuring that this network is built to amplify the work that you're currently doing. And really to try and achieve SDGs by 2030 as opposed to 2092. So when we look at the numbers of our Catalyst family, as Drew loves to say, we're over 1,600 strong social innovators, as well as innovators from over 1,200 member organizations. We cut across 197 countries and territories. This is the membership itself. And we serve the lives and touch lives of over 2 billion people worldwide through our different initiatives, ranging from agriculture to philanthropy to WASH and so forth. Next slide, please. And really our mission at Catalyst, as I said, is really to catalyze collaboration across various sectors and really to unleash our collective potential for global systems change. And for many of you that understand systems change, it's really ensuring that we are creating sustainable change that will be here for many years to come, even after we succeed our organizations or the organization itself moves forward. The idea of Catalyst is really to ensure that we are creating change that will live on for many years to come. And we really have a vision of a world where we achieve our SDGs by 2030 through unprecedented mobilization of social entrepreneurs, partners, and resources. And that's really the bedrock of Catalyst, collective action towards sustainable goals. And in terms of our values, our core, our mandates is really around people and nature being at the center of everything that we do. We have a very co-creative mind in that we ensure that everyone has a seat at the table, everyone has a voice, and collectively our minds are stronger than individually. We also, as I said, have collaborative leadership. We have a very humble audacity, which essentially is saying that we are humble and saying we don't know it all, but when we come together, we do have the audacity to ensure that we move forward and we strive towards our collective goal. And we have a spirit of generosity. Everything that we do, all of us here, we're doing so with the hope that through our work and through the generosity that we are giving out, we will be able to take collective action. And excitingly today, we are launching, Catalyst has a range of different chapters, both regionally and country, across the world, as I said. And today, focusing on Africa, we are launching our Africa chapters. Right now, we have South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, Liberia, and Nigeria launching. And to just provide some context to these chapters, a regional chapter, we discuss things around collaboration and networking, whereas country chapters tackle more country-specific issues that we as social innovators and entrepreneurs within that country want to tackle collectively. So we're very excited today to launch the Nigeria chapter, and thank you for joining us. Over to you, Emma.
Thanks for the intro, Ify. I believe that we have an amazing video just to kind of move us on to the next phase. Miss Susanna will be sharing now. So please, let's watch. Thank you so much, Susanna, for that amazing video. So what we are trying to say, and I believe that the slide meant to come up, but I'm just going to be giving in this section a brief overview of the activity leading up to the Nigeria chapter launch, really just looking at why this is an opportune time for us to have a local chapter, Catalyst 2030, represented. Currently, the Africa chapter, the regional chapter, is composed of 5 country chapters. Simultaneously launching, we have Kenya, Liberia, South Africa, and Nigeria. And then we also have a chapter already established in Tanzania with about 230 members spread across 22 countries on the African continent. Move on a bit. And so it is important that as Nigerians, because just for the record, Nigerian chapter members number at about 60, and we are one of the most popular chapters within the network currently. And all our chapter members, together address from SDGs 1 to SDG 17. For example, philanthropy circuit, we are actively pursuing SDG 17 within Catalyst 2030. So, and this is something that we think would be a great opportunity to really strengthen the Nigerian social entrepreneurship ecosystem. And so you can see chapter conveners, myself and Ify, on the slide. You look amazing, by the way. And so to just come to the point of why a Nigeria chapter and the plans that we've had for the Africa chapter has been available, was created about over a year ago. And then over the course of the chapter, we realized how important it was that members are able to connect on a more local level. And so the idea of country chapters was created. Now, within the Nigeria chapter, thought and priorities have been given to things that we believe are important to, given our own context, our particular context, given our country context, given the frameworks that guide how social entrepreneurship is being done within the country. And so I'll be going over that. I feel like Susanna's slides may have been frozen, or please let me know if it's from my own end. So I can just, okay. So currently, thought has been given to how we can better foster collaboration, which is top of mind for Catalyst 2030. And then really the priority is based on where we are in Nigeria, based on our, looking at the environment, the social, legal, economic structures. We realize that there are prevailing social barriers that might hamper social entrepreneurship. The priority is given to identifying the network of relevant CSOs and their own activities, and not just create or trying to say we are creating a new framework for institutional entrepreneurship. We understand that there are already existing organizations. There are pre-existing networks that we can key into, support and amplify the work that is being done to further strengthen the ecosystem. To co-generate ideas with these CSOs is, of course, important to us. To build system support for the generated ideas and programs of execution, to find ways we could mobilize, and this could be funding, skills, technical resources, and then to build social entrepreneurship as a strong sector at the country level. Some of the activities planned for 2022, and this is still being put together, and of course, subject to, for example, the open discussion that will be happening at the end of this session. But we're really looking for an alignment between members to see how members can collaborate, to see how we can leverage our collective voice with the government to shape the sector, to shape sector policy generally, to see how we can promote initiatives to change public perception of our sector. Personally, for me, that's very important. And we have come a long way, quite frankly, but I wonder if I'm speaking as someone who is already in the sector, and then I want to ask those who aren't, to just see how do they see nonprofits and development stakeholders currently. And then we're also hoping to have sharing of resources, knowledge, and skills through structured platforms, mapping, engaging, and aligning with key development stakeholders across sectors, and then creating spaces to meet and connect with other members, and physical in-person meetings, which we had hoped to be able to do by now. But unfortunately, we were unable to, but we definitely will be doing meetups, and definitely will be ensuring that there is space for connection in person as well as online. And so, as the chapter launches, please join us as we go into the next session. Sana, if you want to introduce with the next slide. As we go into the next session, which is a panel discussion, we have with us an amazing lineup of speakers. Mrs. Miriam Wires is the Special Advisor to the President on matters of social investment. Mr. Oyebisi Oluseyi is the Executive Director of the Nigeria Network of NGOs, a vibrant NGO membership platform that has been doing amazing work within the ecosystem. Adaeze Obiozo is the founder and managing partner of the Good Company Limited, and she's also an amazing voice for newer forms of philanthropy, and I'm so excited to have her on this call, and I hope that you're able to listen to each and everyone, speak to their passions, speak to how they feel that we can advance the social agenda for Nigeria and strengthen the social entrepreneurial system in the country. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Miriam Wires. If her video can come on, that would be amazing, but I'm excited either way. Good afternoon, ma. So I think you're still muted. Good afternoon. Yes, yes.
Let me put the light in front of me. Sorry.
Okay.
So that it's easier to, I think this is better,
It's
right?
brighter. Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Thank
you.
Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for joining us today, ma.
Thank you.
Yes. So I know I had already given a sort of brief introduction, But it should be great to see how, because I do know you have a special relationship with Catalyst 2030. If you could maybe speak to what you do and your work with Catalyst 2030.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very excited about the Nigerian chapter. There weren't too many of us when we started. It began at the World Economic Forum. I was invited to join them at Althorp, and it was a very exciting time. So much was achieved in such a short period, especially given the dynamism of Jero and her team. Unfortunately, I've been in and out. I haven't been that active, but I've been keeping an eye. I'm on the WhatsApp group, and I know there's a lot of progress that has been made. What I do really is working on the social sector in Nigeria, and I handled 4 of the social investment programs for the first 4 years before they were moved to the humanitarian ministry. I also chaired the social cluster and the technical working group on social protection when the medium-term development plan was being developed. The social cluster comprises of 9 technical working groups, and it included women, children, water hygiene, water, sanitation and hygiene, health, education, identity, a lot of youth and sports. So I have a pretty good idea of what Nigeria aims to achieve within the next 5 years in terms of the social sector. Then we're now in the process of doing the 2050 plan for Nigeria. So social entrepreneurs are really a welcome category in Nigeria because it hasn't been as active as it should be in the past. You know, we just need to come together because there's a dearth of funds. I work in government. I know that the money will never be enough to address the huge numbers, especially in relation to SDG 1 to 6. So partnerships are really critical. And this is why I think getting ourselves together and working towards achieving the goals would be a win-win situation for Nigeria, because there's no way just one sector, even the private sector, would be able to achieve the goals unless we put ourselves together and work as one. There are many challenges to working as one, and I acknowledge them. The fact that Nigeria is a federation means there are different social economies in every state, and every state prioritizes what their own targets, what the budget will be, what will be spent on certain issues. And then the other issue, the other challenge that I've seen in government is the fact that we tend to focus more on tangible issues. So government and the private sector want to focus more on infrastructure. So if there's 100 million, for instance, allocated to education in a budget, you'd find that about 90 million of it would go on the brick and the mortar, because for the politician, they want to demonstrate that this is what they've done, this is their legacy, and of course, this is where the contracts are. The other issues that actually come together to ensure that we have a full classroom of children are neglected because they take time to measure, and these are the social protection issues, the health and the education. So even if you build a first-class school in a poor community, unless you address the poverty of the parents, the children will still go to the farms with the father, or go hawk for the mother at markets. So we need to address those issues. We need to also address the quality of teaching. Our teachers need to be trained. They need to be available in the schools. So we need to look at performance. We need to look at safety issues. We need to look at the health of the mother, because if she is not well, her children are not going to get ready, are not going to be prepared to go to school. So these other issues are as critical as infrastructure. And I think that we need to also begin to focus on that. And I say the private sector also because the private sector always, wants to see immediate returns on investment. So for the banks, even for for agriculture, in the past, we handled the homegrown school feeding program. I got the EPRI to come and do like a business case for school feeding and for the cash transfers that we're doing with the World Bank. They showed that, it'll take a period of 6 to 8 years for us to see that, but of course there would be value. There's value. I try to explain to the private sector that if we need, just in 17 states, if we need 8 million eggs every week, then you must understand how important it is for the poultry farmer to be able to, for the school feeding program to succeed. Unfortunately, it didn't quite pick up, so I think this is one of the things that the social entrepreneurs should focus on, looking at the other issues. It's very difficult, I know, in a 4-year term, because this is structural. It takes 4 years or 3-4 years for us to be able to measure and demonstrate that we're actually making an impact in health and in education, especially. So it's important that we look at that. And this is why one of the issues we're looking at now is a social bond with a gender component, so that we see, we're able to monitor closely and reassure those that actually invest in the bond that the money is being used for the purpose. So I would say that we have so many social entrepreneurs, that are really fast, that are really dedicated and committed. And they have a passion to reduce what is happening. And a lot of what is happening needs to be from bottoms up. It has to be at community level, growing to the local government and to the state before it even comes to the federal government. What we can do at federal government level, which is where I serve, is coordinate, ensure that we have the standards, we can monitor, we can do the research, we can analyze and see what the trends are with a view to curbing a lot of the adverse practices that actually keep us below expectation. So that will help us achieve the SDGs. And of course, the fact that there's no one cap that fits all in Nigeria. It's such a diverse country. Every state has different issues. We must find a way of having basic minimum standards, but with the flexibility that will ensure that we can, target specific indices in the states, noting where the weaknesses are, and applying our energy to uplifting the conditions of those who actually deserve some support from government. So I don't know how long I have to speak, but this is essentially what I have to say. And I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of social entrepreneurs targeting various areas, especially in financial inclusion. There are many presumptions about people having phones and people having, numbers, and there's some structural issues like with the CBN insisting that the kind of the lowest, the accounts that we can open have to have phone numbers. We have seen poor people using phones of people who are more affluent, or women using phones of their husbands or their children, and the alerts go to those phones, and the actual beneficiary doesn't even know that the amounts have arrived. So we must find a way of reaching the poor people. Luckily, we have a national social register that now has over 14 million individuals, and the categories are amazing. You can actually see those who have, the size of the household, the gender components, those who have special needs, the ages, the assets that they have, whether they have running water, whether they have roofs. And this information is available at federal level, but every state has done the compilation by itself and then shared it at the National Social Register. So we're able, at the national level, sorry. So we're able to actually, meeting the protocols, of course, for confidentiality, we're able to actually target the poor depending on what the interest or the passion is per social entrepreneur. And I'm sure that the information would be available once the protocols are met. Thank you so much for the opportunity for engaging with this platform, and I look forward to a very vibrant Nigerian chapter.
Thank you so much, but that was such an amazing way to kick off the panel discussion, and really spoke to like the questions that were in my mind, for example, around government take, a more structured government take on social entrepreneurship. You really spoke to how important it is, even the fact that you started to highlight financial inclusion. I know that is a trending conversation currently in social entrepreneurship space. So that's been really important. Sincere appreciation, and thank you on your best wishes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll be handing over the mic, so to speak, to Mr. Oyebisi, who is the Executive Director of the Nigerian Network of NGOs, and brings with him a wealth of experience working in both multicultural settings and then locally to strengthen the Nigerian development ecosystem. And I would like to hear from him, how important it is, to have the values of collaboration, the place of networks in strengthening and advancing the social agenda. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, Emma, and it's good to be speaking after a very respected mother, and she has laid the foundation for how a social enterprise, we need to now start thinking around some of the issues that needs to be sorted. For me, working in the traditional nonprofit sector, we're realizing more that social enterprise would be the way to go. And that's why I'm excited about the launch of Catalyst 2030 in Nigeria today, because it provides that opportunity for those that would like to start a social enterprise, or those that are already running one, to come together. And what is the role of networking? Because at the end of the day, the Nigerian chapter is more of a network, all right? And what will be the role of collaboration? I must warn out here that networking should be cost related, because we are all sort of competing for about the same resources. It might be difficult at times to have organizations investing the way they should in a collaboration, and or providing the right commitment for growing a network. However, if it is a cost-related network, then that means that you're sharing knowledge for the purposes of addressing several issues. And those issues we are addressing is also very clear. We're addressing the 17 SDG goals with God knows how many indicators, that over 100 indicators that we have now. So it means that there's a place for all of the 1,500 and more members of Catalyst 2030 to help us in the next 8 to 10 years find solutions to many of the problems that we have, from poverty to education to health, to climate change, to issues around gender-based violence, financial inclusion, as mentioned by Madam Wise, and identifying how we can all work together. What COVID had taught us is that we can't do it all alone. There has to be that collaboration that needs to happen. And of course, that collaboration is already also envisaged within the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, which will be Goal 17, Partnership for Goals. But how do we strengthen this? How do we ensure that we're looking at each other's resources, looking at each other's strengths, and using that to address the many gaps and challenges that we would see? One is to say that during COVID, I took a course in resilience. And what that course taught me is sometimes, and I need to put a caveat here, is that you might decide to go it all alone if you can't invest in collaboration, because collaboration itself is a journey, but also more importantly requires a lot of investment on the part of those that are going into that job. So to strengthen that, it's always important, and I would use the launch of the Nigerian chapter today as my case study, right? There are relationships that need to be built for the network to be able to move in the direction of helping us achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, which captures all of the world's problems. There's a culture that also exists in terms of networking in the country. Having run the Nigerian Network of NGOs for like 10 years, I know there's a culture of involvement. There's a culture of when civil society says, let's do this, that's where it has ended. If care is not taken, you know, it might be 1 or 2 or 3 organizations that will be running the network itself. And when that now starts, they'll say they've hijacked the network. You want to watch out for that, because everyone must invest time, must invest resources, and must be clear. Why are we joining this chapter? What exactly does this chapter help us to achieve in terms of our vision and mission? And how are we looking at the broader picture of attaining the Sustainable Development Goals? I'm sure structures and setup would have been dealt with, but looking at leadership is also a key thing around strengthening networks and also ensuring that collaboration works for the ambitious goals that we have of addressing many of the 17 SDG goals as well. Intent has to be very much clarified. Why are we collaborating? Where is this collaboration taking us? What outcomes do we want to see? For instance, the first speaker mentioned how there's a social register, and how that social register is helping us to deal with issues of social protection. And when you look at goal 1 of the SDGs, social protection is an important element. So how are we going as a chapter to look at the access we have at the moment, to use that to help strengthen whatever is on the ground at the moment, such that we can lift millions out of poverty, as promised by the president. This requires innovative thinking. This does not necessarily require charity anymore. We need to move away from the way we practice non-profit. We need to now think strategically around how best does how work, how business ideas translate into helping the bottom billion, and in ways that we can measure those impacts. And as a network also, how are we ensuring that we're influencing policies? Apart from influencing policies, we have case studies of projects that we have implemented that we can share with all stakeholders in ways that helps them to scale up. Expectations has to be properly communicated. I would expect that for the Nigerian launch, you've started with very good video, you've started with very good communication materials. We have to continue to communicate. For a network, communication is the life of a network, from your newsletters to your emails. And don't be surprised if people don't check those emails or they don't read those newsletters. For us at the Nigerian Network of NGOs, we've had to expand that to make use of SMS, such that at least we're getting the information to you, because as a network, information and knowledge is one of the key things that products that you bring to the table. In terms of the collaboration itself, recall that we're talking about how to strengthen collaboration towards ensuring that we're able to bring about solutions through the Nigerian platform to attaining the Sustainable Development Goals. The decision-making principles also has to be very clear. In a network, it's not always clear, and that could lead to some level of tussle, but let this be clear, and let's ensure that, however we say, collaboration might be formal and it might be informal. We've often said or accused each other and say, we don't collaborate too much, but we do collaborate. However, we've not sometimes formalized it. Sometimes we just call each other and say, hey, can you quickly do this for me? Do you have access to this? Do you have? And there are also aspects and ingredients of what makes collaboration work. So we might not necessarily look at the formal collaboration where we're signing contracts or terms of reference. However, we're looking at how do we, as a matter of fact, work together within a culture of mutual trust and respect, and we can drive towards that goal that we've both agreed on. Unfortunately, I just saw a chart about how do we collaborate towards the SDGs. I think I must be frank as to how our sector, civil society, we've not been able to take advantage of many of the systems that are in place for us to engage. There's a weak capacity in engaging. There's a part where also we're not able to understand that the SDGs itself is not necessarily project-based. It is more knowledge-driven, program-based, and also it's also policy-based. It's a goal that requires the collective. No one sector can do it all. And we must bring all the knowledge, all the expertise, all the case studies and realities we've seen from the field to bear on policies, then monitor the implementation of those policies, including retooling them for purposes of ensuring that we're getting to those targets that or the indicators that we've said that we would achieve. So that platform is still not there. We're still not able to move that muscle in the areas of concrete policy proposals to government. And when we've also been able to do that, we've not been able to communicate that more effectively. And this is one of the challenges that we have. We are still at the space where we're still saying people don't know about the SDGs. And I always ask, what's the role of a social enterprise? What's the role of a civil society? They are still saying people do not know about the SDGs. Our role is to raise awareness. And that's one thing that Catalyst 2020 might want to take on. Raise more awareness. The elections are coming. How can we ensure that the manifestos coming from political parties are SDGs based? And we'll begin to look at how those can help us attain the SDGs. How do we ensure that we're looking at the budgets and thinking them through in terms of where is government priority going in terms of attaining the SDGs? Then providing insight as to some of the challenges we have as social enterprise, engaging with our regulators to ensure ease of doing business for our sector as well, and also opportunities for engaging with government and the private sector. Over to you, Emma.
Thank you so much for that. That was so, I've been taking notes, right? My pen, guys. I've been taking notes because I think you highlighted so many areas that we could come in and we could maybe even put up on the floor and open as part of the open discussion we'll be having later on around taking our place as social enterprises and entrepreneurs, taking our place as a network, but also as members of civil society in Nigeria, being able to do what we claim and we aim to do and being able to do it well. I know that you might be chopping off soon, but we have loved to have you here. Thank you so much for that. Just that, the brief takeaways that you've been able to share. I'll be moving on to our third and final speaker for this panel, the amazing Adesi, and having her share her insights into newer forms. And I'm really looking forward to this section because you guys, everyone, we're all in for it, right? Her own insight into newer forms of philanthropy and how we can take advantage of certain forms of philanthropy in strengthening and advancing social entrepreneurship and the social agenda for Nigeria. Hi, Adesi.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to be here and joining such an amazing lineup of speakers. As Mr. Oyebisi had spoken, that it was such a pleasure to be speaking right after Mrs. Mariam Uwes. I am indeed
I think Adesi's connection might have frozen.
2030 team for the invitation and just having me share a conversation that is very, that is, I find that it's very timely, in the area of philanthropy. So I would give a very quick introduction. My name is Adesi Obiozo, as Emma had introduced. I am the founder and managing partner of The Good Company Limited, and we are a legacy and philanthropy advisory firm. And today I'm going to be speaking on, if you'd allow me to share my screen now, very quickly. Share. Please, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, fantastic. So I am going to be speaking very quickly and briefly on promoting the success of social entrepreneurship in Nigeria using non-traditional forms of philanthropy. And so one of the missions or the objective of our firm is really, besides, advising clients across select sectors on philanthropy, and of course, providing a proprietary suite of foundation management solution, which is tech-enabled and tech-based. Besides that is also a conversation and a narrative that we are very passionate about, which is on the new age forms or the non-traditional forms of philanthropy. So I'm going to be speaking very briefly on it and how our firm is lending our thoughts and our expertise to the conversation, and also bringing speaking a lot and just finding ways to catalyze and accelerate philanthropy, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa. We are also very passionate about giving philanthropy a face, especially in this generation. So we recognize that there is a generation that is going ahead of us, which are the baby boomers, which Mrs. Mariam is a part of. We recognize the wisdom and the expertise of that generation. But we also are very aware of the millennial generation that first, we are the new connoisseur of wealth. We're the ones we're building wealth. We're also deploying new age technologies in the way that we view entrepreneurship, the way we do business, and more importantly, the conversation that what we're speaking about today, which is on social entrepreneurship. So we're building wealth, but of course we believe very strongly that in order to sustain legacy and build multi-generational wealth, philanthropy plays a very strong role. But of course, it's only achievable, or we see it being doable using newer forms of philanthropy that is not the traditional form of charity that we understand. So I'm going to just go very quickly. So I'll start with a story. Social impact and or social innovation always starts with a story. So here is Temi Dyer. She is the founder of Go Learn. It's an edtech learning company that offers access to world-class education, both primary and secondary education. And as a for-profit social enterprise startup, Go Learn invests 50% of its profits in community projects that ensure disadvantaged children in Nigeria's rural community have access to basic education, a conducive learning environment, and also training for teachers. As Mrs. Mariam was speaking, she had highlighted a point that resonated with me very strongly, where she was speaking about, even if you build infrastructure or you try to repair or address the infrastructural deficits in communities, maybe with education, if you do not address some of the key structures or the key players, which in this case with children would be the parents, and with education, not just the children, but with the teachers as well. So if those these players are not addressed, and the issues that they face is not being brought to the table, and solutions aren't created or designed to address them, some of these interventions or initiatives would be counterproductive. So here, Temi Dyer, had a very, very amazing childhood. And at some point, things, went bad for her family. And so what it meant was that her father, he was retrenched, and then they had to go back to another community. They had to go back to base, another state. Thankfully, her dad had, built a home, but it was in a community that wasn't somewhere between the urban and the rural community. And so there she had an amazing childhood. And, at some point she had to be shipped off to her grandmother, and that was the best thing that had happened to her. So her grandmother is, an educationist, and, back in the day, and is very, very passionate about educating the girl child. And so she, with the help of her parents, did provide her with good education to an extent. And of course, over time, because she had the foundation, had then started to invest in herself, and at this point, to the point where she, where she is today. Now, each time she went back to her community where to visit her parents, she would see quite a number of, kids, the people that she grew up with and she did play in the rain with, and would ask herself a question: what is the difference between myself and this other friends of mine? What happened? What had happened at the time was education. That was that was the difference, or that was what gave her a better chance of life. And so she went back and thought, why don't I create a platform? Why don't I create a solution that addresses this education, the deficit or the infrastructure deficit in education in Nigeria? And of course, use that as a platform, or use that, as a revenue generating model to also contribute to ensuring that, other children like her childhood friends have a chance at education. And that's how GoLearn was, an ed tech learning platform was created. So we're going to be using Temidire and her social, because what we see here is a picture of a social enterprise or a social entrepreneur or innovator. So we're going to be using her as our case study today. And so we'll just do a very quick look at the different types of social entrepreneurship. We have the community social entrepreneurship, we have the global change, we have the nonprofit. We also added that there is a for-profit, because Temidire has her model is a for-profit social enterprise, and we have the innovative social enterprise. And that's where we sort of fall in as a company, and the different initiatives. So although our company is a profit-focused advisory firm, we adopt aspects of the innovative social enterprise in both our corporate strategy and service solutions, and as well as our product innovation. And the Millennial Philanthropy Network, which I'm going to be speaking of very, very quickly in a few minutes, is an example of our custom initiative that operates as a social innovation. And so here is where I'm going to be speaking. So what I term this is a shift in focus, the non-traditional forms of philanthropy for sustained success. And I'm going to just be speaking on these 4 areas. There are quite a number of other solutions and strategies that we have designed and we have created at the Good Company, which we do advise clients on, but I'm just going to be speaking briefly on this. So with venture philanthropy, we all know what venture is if we're borrowing the term from the venture capitalist structure model of investment. And in this place, what we have found with the not-for-profits and the private foundations and all other platforms that are contributing to social change across the continent, we find that with receiving funding and with having access to funding there is a challenge there. Right, and there, you have some people who talk about the bureaucracies, and of course, the non-readiness of the foundations as well. And so we had introduced a concept that's called venture philanthropy, and what we are advocating for is an opportunity for philanthropists and private foundations to come together to pool funds in a way that gives access access to resources. Now, not just the funds in itself, because we know that giving is not just about money. And philanthropy, which is the conditioning that quite a number of people see or think, is that philanthropy is about money. But philanthropy is much more than money. There are other resources that can be deployed to support enterprises or to support innovations that are solving social problems in Nigeria and across Africa. And so looking at this model, and what we are saying is raising a fund or building a fund that we have philanthropists across who are able to build a fund, put together this fund, and then as a company, there is a due diligence process that's the social enterprises or initiatives go through, the same way you would streamline it and shortlist them in a venture capitalist investment structure. And so with the case study using Temidaya, so what we are doing is that we look out for initiatives or companies that are doing a world of good, that are contributing and to the advancement of the SDGs or the social entrepreneurship with social issues in Africa and in Nigeria, and we are then deploying funds to these people. And we work with both the institutional and the individual donors, in this case, our funders, to invest in those companies. And now there are different structures which is available to the investor, or in this case, the donor, where it's either there is a recurring structure with a donor advised type structure, or an investment vehicle where we then, the returns of the returns or the return on investment from these businesses now go back to the donor advised accounts or the donors structure, which they also are able to advise on how to, where or how to deploy the capital moving forward. So what we are doing as a good company is that we are in the works of launching a fund for education, which is called the Good Fund. And it is a $1 million venture fund that will be backed by institutional and individual philanthropists. And so in looking at the conversation and how we see that social entrepreneurship can be supported using non-traditional ways of philanthropy, is that venture philanthropy is one of the quickest ways and one of the sustainable ways to do that. We've seen models in the West. We've seen with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We've seen, and even with Microsoft and what they're doing and the structure where they are deploying some model that gives room for investments to be sustainable, as opposed to just giving out grants. So again, it can take the form of a grant and it can take the form of a seed investment. It is at the, it depends on the choice of the investors. Another very quick one is with community, the power of more. And that's where we had launched the Millennial Philanthropist Network. It is a collective of credible voices of change, embracing generosity, serving as ethical stewards, and being driven by a common objective, greater impact and thriving communities in Africa. And these are philanthropists, who either as institutional or individual philanthropists, social innovators, family offices. So for us, again, going back to our objective and also providing support for a case study as Temidaya and the Go Learn initiative, is that we're launching in October, is that we thought, how about we bring a pool of like-minded people, professionals across sectors, who are passionate about giving, who understand the power of giving, and who want to see Africa attain self-sovereignty. It is an audacious goal for us when we talk about it, but it is possible that Africa can actually attain self-sovereignty. Now, we know that the foreign investment and diaspora support would always have a place and play a role in the development of any economy. But of course, we want to see a situation, or we want to see a situation where Africa sitting at the table is not just about, we sit at the table not from a place of relief or from a place of, well, to just make up the numbers, but we are at the table and we're contributing both in resources, all forms of resources, and our voice are being heard at the very big table. And we're also driven by the fact that millennials right now are the custodians of wealth. We're building the next generation of wealth. We understand the new age technologies, we're deploying it, and we're seeing, it's skyrocketing. One of the examples I share a lot was at a time with the End SARS, the movement that happened. And there was a group of women called feminist coalition. These were just young people like myself running running businesses and, unicorns and multi-billion-dollar companies in terms of revenue. And they came together to pool resources to support people who were affected by the attack. And these people, from lawyers to all forms of professionals, and they were not just pooling their intellectual resources, they were pooling finances in dollars, in pounds, in naira. It was massive. And I had an opportunity through, a friend of mine who was is a legal a lawyer. And so I had an insight, and I was privy to what was happening there. And I saw how a group of people who were just committed to seeing that change, would happen, and also willing to put their money where their mouth is. And they raised this money. They didn't have to ask for people. So what that told me, or what he signaled to me, was that millennials are ready, millennials have the money, and it is possible to build wealth, sustain legacy, and sustain multi-generational wealth using philanthropy as a catalyst. And so that is also another aspect in terms of bringing people together, pooling resources, pooling funds, and looking at a social problem and addressing it. And that is, the second aspect. And then with technology, we're seeing how technology is leapfrogging solutions. We're seeing even at the Good Company with our foundation management suite, the technology is leapfrogging, innovation is leapfrogging all aspects. We're seeing the big boom in technology in Africa and in Nigeria. We're seeing how investments and funds are being raised, different rounds of funds being raised. And of course, Tenidayo, who is our case study, also knew that in order to reach and the level of impact, to achieve the level of impact that she wants to see that is across borders, technology needed to be deployed. So another way that is non-traditional and that philanthropy can actually support social entrepreneurship is through technology. And because of time, I would have gone into it to just breaking down the different, I would have loved to do that, breaking down the different aspects that technology can be deployed for success and for sustained growth. And then lastly is the network, the Millennial Philanthropy Network. It's a class, a class of philanthropists and wealth custodians are emerging, and millennials are heralding it. And the model that we are deploying is community-led. The issues of Africa or the issues of Nigeria, we would say, is from top to bottom, right? There is a word that's been talking about top to bottom. But the truth is, in creating solutions and preferring sustainable, measurable, impactful solutions, it has to start from the bottom down, from the bottom up. And so we are looking, so the idea is it's community-led. And so we are not looking at, starting from the top or starting from the bottom. And so it's community-led, it's a donor advised structuring and a funder collective. And so I hope that with this, very due to time, I hope that with these 4 points, I've been able to just speak a little bit about the non-traditional forms of philanthropy that can support that can support social entrepreneurship in Nigeria. And of course, there is an aspect for policy as well, which hopefully we would have another time to really discuss and see newer ways of engaging stakeholders like Mrs. Mariam and our other speakers, and just across different sectors, the role that the private sector is also playing or will be playing in these forms of support. And so yes, and that's right about it. It is such an honor to speak about it. And thank you very much. I am done speaking.
Thank you so much, Adeze, for that. That was such an in-depth one. And I do want that, but I'm one of those people that ask, would you get the slides that were used at the end of webinars? I'm one of those people. So
sure.
Awesome.
We'd be happy to share.
Oh, thank you. So we could just share them, and then we would, of course, share to the larger house.
Yes.
As a follow-up. So that would be great. And for everyone who might have thought about it, it's happening, guys. Just to continue, I haven't seen any particular questions in the chat. We have come to the end of the panel discussion, and I'm going to be moving on to a more open discussion where we basically leave the floor open to respond to questions that we hope can guide the discussions. But if there are any questions, please feel free to bring them up now. Otherwise, if you want to if you have a reflection, a question or an observation, the floor is yours. Please, you could use the reaction button to maybe raise your hand, and then we could unmute you so you can speak. Otherwise, go ahead and let us know. But Susanna, you can have the questions up, pending if there are any more personal questions. If there are any personal questions, we'll be happy to take those. But in the event that they aren't, we just want to go over and pick your brain, so to speak, as to what are the aspects that Nigeria that you feel, because we understand that everyone here has lived experience, right? We're not asking, foreigners or, people who are not native to the country to come and launch the chapter for us. We have lived experience. We are members of the development space. We know to an extent what we feel around about the system of the development system that we are currently living in. So what are the aspects that you think Nigeria needs to address to advance in the SDGs? The same way ABC has said, there are certain aspects, if we're going to be coming together as a chapter, as a network, there are certain things she highlighted that would be great to address. More generally, what do you think, what are those areas that you think that Nigeria on its own, it could be legally, politically, socially, that you think Nigeria needs to address to be able to advance the SDGs? We do know the goal is meant to be 2030. From the slides, we are seeing that we are nowhere near that at the current pace we are going. We are definitely not going to be able to meet up with 2030. So what do we need to do, even as a chapter, right? Even as a country, to be able to meet up realistically? Please, the floor is yours. If anyone would like to come in, if you introduce yourself, introduce your organization if necessary, and then please share your thoughts. Susanna, I would say maybe leave the slide up so people could refresh. I want to do something we used to do in school, but then in school, be like, oh, let's go clockwise. So from the first person on my screen, I can start going around calling people's names, but I won't do that yet. That anyone that want to maybe, okay, Vincent Obi, thank you so much. So Vincent Obi, please feel free to go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, good afternoon.
My name is Vincent Obi, founder of Hail Africa in Nigeria. We're based in Lagos, Nigeria. So it's been a great session so far, and I've been following from back to back, and right from the first speaker down to the last person, it's been very, very informative. My contributions to achieving the SDGs by 2030, which we have just realized we are not, or possibly might not be able to meet up, is to do one thing, which is what Hail Africa actually works towards, addressing the issues of quality education and the way it is being trickled down in secondary schools. So of recent, someone posted something about the way China and the US handle the education system, how they have put in so much interest into primary and secondary education, because this period of time is actually very vital, a formidable period in the life of youth. At that point in time, what they are taught to think is what they actually grow up to be. So why not invest so much within that period of time? But Nigeria instead, we do otherwise. We have invested so much in the university education, which till date we cannot assure that it is of quality. So we have so many people in the primary and secondary education system who, for those who cannot afford to go to those private institutions, and for those who end up in the low-fee primary and secondary schools, which are private, and also in government schools, you and I would say, or we know that the quality of education rendered in those schools are nothing compared to what the world is doing currently. And I say, Addressing education, especially from the grassroots, will go a long way to addressing several other issues we are facing in Nigeria today. Be it issue of governance, be it issue of health, be it issue of even economic development across communities. Teaching a child the right thing to do at the right time in their life would actually go a long way. Like I take myself, for instance, I grew up in a community whereby majority of the children within that community all went to government secondary school. I did the same thing. I moved into Lagos newly. My parents got us enrolled into such school here in Lagos. I don't understand Yoruba. And that was the major language which the teachers there were using to teach. So we were coming in from Kaduna, and our grades were better there because we were enrolled into a private school. Coming down to Lagos, being taught in Yoruba, language we didn't understand at all. Someone like me was taking, I was the second to the last in the class. And my sister was the last in the class because I was even trying to understand Yoruba, but it wasn't helpful in any way. So due to that reason, after a term, my dad had to change us into a private school. So the story in summary is that most of my friends who ended up in secondary school, majority, I would say 80% of them never made it into the university. Because I believe at that point in time, while they were in those secondary schools, most of them were exposed to several vices instead of virtues. They were exposed to things like cultism. They were exposed to things that didn't inspire their mind to think beyond the environment. Things that didn't inspire them to say, okay, there's a life outside of what we are doing now. There's a life out there for us. There's so much we can achieve with ourselves instead of getting involved in things within the community. So I believe addressing education, or the way education is being trickled down in communities today, is the best way to achieve the SDGs by 2030. So that would be my contribution for now.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I kind of second that because it is important. Even from the sample that you are giving, it does make me think of people I knew back in school who might have had difficulties. Now that I think about it, they might have had just difficulty with communication. But at the end of the day, they might have been really intelligent persons who just had an issue, maybe around the curriculum or an educational system, not getting the educational system appropriately. So thank you. And that's something that I've basically noted and we could always speak to, because this is the point where we're trying to build up on what we can speak to. I'd like to leave the floor open for any other persons before I begin to call names. Right? Any other person who would want to share maybe the work you're doing, on what you think is important to address within Nigeria in advancing, action towards the SDGs. So please go ahead. I feel like I might be missing seeing people's hands. So we have Godfrey, Henry, Leslie, Hope Behind Bars Foundation, Asika Rani Okafor, Esther. You're still with us. We would like to hear your inputs.
Hi.
Hi, Esther.
Hi. My apologies. I logged out earlier on because I finished my own session this morning. And I think the question that I'd like to ask is a question that was asked during my own session, right? By one of the speakers, which is collaboration. And, when it comes to collaborating with other NGOs, you have projects you want to collaborate, right? There seems to be a challenge with that. And I have also noticed that most organizations that have the name in quotes usually do not collaborate with younger organizations that are just coming up on projects. And it's hard, when you're just starting out, right? And you need the visibility, you need the support, you need to be housed there, and then you're not getting the right support. And I think it's a conversation that we should bring to the front burner And I'm also mentioning this on this platform because, you know, it goes into funding as well, right? Funding a project. I don't know if it's me, but there seems to be like a recycling of the people who actually get that funding. I want to know the magic because like people do the work and they don't get funding, right? There are so many people. So in my head, when I hear the amount of funding some people get, then I go back to read or just check the activities around that period. And I cannot see anything. Yeah, there are people who, you get what I'm saying, like who do the work. You see them doing the work every day, but then the funding doesn't come. Is there a way we can sort of like try and correct that, right? Or push these organizations to the front burner? Because, okay, like my session, for example, folks were asking, oh, Esther, why didn't you pick certain people for your session? I said, listen, I have featured over 1,000 women, both in my Guardian newspaper and my blog. I am done with names. I am aligning with people. If we don't bring the new ones forward, we will keep recycling names. I said, names, it's not my problem. That's not my problem anymore. But I do not want to be in the space where when you have opportunities, you're only calling your people. You get what I'm saying? Like, I said, no, other people have, you know, they have something to say. They have a voice, you know, they need the visibility as well. So give them the platform. And I have charged myself up to start doing that. When I have projects, I'm not just going to align with people who are out there. I'm not going to go on Google and say, oh, because your name is not on the search, you know, I don't want to work with you. If I'm going to be the light in someone else's project, I'm ready to do that. If aligning with me, partnering with me, collaborating with me, would shine light on your project, then let's do it. You know, and I'd really appreciate if we bring these conversations to the front burner with our chapter here in Nigeria, because a lot of people, you know, cannot say it, but these problems are there. The people who do the work don't get the funding, sadly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, Esther, because I think it's something that I can tell you within the last 1 week, I've been in conversations and in rooms where what you're saying has come up, and it's not just typical to Nigeria. I can assure you, the last person I heard talk about what you just said was a Kenyan. And so I think there is that underscoring narrative around, you know, how bigger organizations continue to be funded, how bigger this is not just bigger non-profits are the ones who are getting the funding. But the reality is that that's why we're trying to launch a strong campaign, right? So we're trying to ensure that, like you said, this is an avenue for us to begin to tackle some of these hard questions, for us to begin to say there are shifts that need to be made. There are differences. This is why we're not just saying, oh, let's all go and join a new network, or let's all go and, but we're saying within ourselves, as a member-led organization, as a member-led network, as a member-led chapter, you have as equal a voice as someone else. And I really like the stance you're bringing, you know, to say we're not looking at just names that you can pop up on the first search on Google, because that's true. And the reality is that once conversation begins to go around this, once we begin to bring voice to it, once we begin to bring light to this, right, there will already be change that is being made. And so I would encourage everyone, because as besides the fact that we're launching the Nigeria chapter today, the Africa Forward launch will also be holding, I think, 3 p.m. Nigeria time. So if we can also join our voice, and then we would have persons from Nigeria, then we'll have persons from other countries. Because like I said, this is an issue that the last person I heard, she was a Kenyan lady speaking on Monday, and she spoke to the exact same thing that you just brought up. And so I think we could also, even from within the Nigeria chapter and then at the Africa chapter, we could also put our voices together and say these are the things, as much as we're trying to reach forward to collaboration, as much as we're trying to achieve the SDG goals, these are the things that we see that need to begin to be brought down. And these are the things that we need to see escalated. We need to see greater value given to collaboration within smaller nonprofits, with where big organizations are willing to join smaller nonprofits to be able to, you know, get that change, be able to get that funding. Realistically, I've seen funding calls where people would say, they want, if you need a small organization, like in the funding call, what they're trying to say is if a small organization, you need to be able to come up with another organization, usually a bigger organization. And if, like you said, a bigger organization is not willing to collaborate with you, where does that leave you at the end of the day? So please feel free. I think I see Bidemi just put in the link. Please feel free to join in. We'll also be talking. There's a call to action for the Africa chapter that we'll be going through within that particular session. So after now, you can give yourself a 30-minute break, but feel free to join in because today is Africa Day, and there's a lot that we can do as a chapter. There's a lot we can do on the local level, at the regional level. There is a lot. I feel like I've spoken for quite a while.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Adesi.
May I just add very quickly to some of the issues that what Esther had raised?
Sure.
So Esther, I totally understand the frustration. Well, permit me to use the word the frustrations that is in that has been experienced in the sector. I'm coming from a private sector structure or as a consultant. But one of the things I wanted to raise, and I find that which still alludes to the conversation that we're talking about and looking at other forms of raising funds, and other forms of, deploying capital or accessing capital. I would say it is, there has to be a strategic process to to the thinking. The reason that non-profit organizations of negotiating. Yes, there's this issue of the same people accessing the same funds and bigger foundations not wanting to partner with you. But one thing I know for sure is one, people can turn down value. Secondly, is that can we start to look out or look away from the traditional grants, accessing grants or accessing funds from the traditional people that give? Can we start to see how we can speak to private sector, some aspect of private sector engagements? If you run a foundation that is focused really on a community structure, do you want to start to look at other models that also build or has a funnel or has frameworks for sustainability that you're able to sustain yourself? And it's very possible. And I see how a foundation or a nonprofit can actually take the form of a social enterprise. And what is a social enterprise? And why are we having this conversation really is that you're able to create something, you have a product or you have something that people can pay value for. And from that, you get revenue and you deploy it into solutions or you deploy it into the problems that you're looking to solve. What it does is that it puts you in a position of power. It takes away from that frustration that then discourages you, because sometimes you get discouraged and you get frustrated by what is in the sector. But if you move away from it and start to see other ways of collaborating, other ways of creating value that the typical non-profit organization or innovate or foundation is not thinking, so that way there is opportunity to scale. You know what I mean? I just hope, I can't, this conversation, we can't, for the time in entirety,
yes,
but it's just to get us to start thinking that way. Thank you.
And that's great. Thank you so much for bringing up Adesi, because looking at alternate forms of research mobilization, very important. Esther, you have your hand up, so feel free, please go ahead. We have time, but of course. I'm seeing your raised hand.
Oh,
okay.
Yes. Thank you very much for that powerful point. I'm speaking, I have been privileged to have some of my programs sponsored by the private sector, banks, telecoms alike. However, I'm speaking for that young woman who has a project in Makoko and needs visibility, because sometimes when you talk about people actually even coming into the spaces of the private sectors, if you don't have the right visibility, you won't even get the funding. So it's quite complex, right? So if you know the right thing to do, but then you don't have the push, which was why I mentioned the collaboration and then the visibility. And I have taken up upon myself to start giving younger women and younger, other organizations visibility. If through me or my media mention of the fact that I featured someone on my column in the Guardian newspaper would give that woman the funding she deserves from the private sector, yes. So what I'm saying is, beyond the funding, the visibility is also needed. We are here today. We should have over 50 or 100 people joining this session, right? But because we have this norm of thinking like, oh, okay, what are they going to say there? Those sort of perspectives, we need to change. People feel I am not going to be part of it because nobody would see me. So if folks start knowing that, listen, you matter, right? You have something to say, please be a part of it. So I'm saying visibility, and yes, the issue with the private sector, I would also find a way to bring that to the front burner. Perhaps, if I can engage you further than this, after this program, I don't mind, even an interview on my page, right? We need to let people know there are other ways, diversify from focusing on this traditional way of getting funding. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. I think that's such a fitting way to close the session and the chapter launch. And just to say, officially, the Nigeria chapter has been launched. I wish there was like a sound reaction I had, just to shake things up a bit. But thank you. We are 2 minutes over time. So I would like to just let everyone who has made it, who has, stuck with us this far in this particular session. Thank you so much for your time. No, I do not take it for granted. I do know that, like Esther herself, a couple of you have either hosted, facilitated, or been in other sessions, and there are still other sessions coming up, of course, that we want you to be part of. So please take out some time, have a snack, rest, and then feel free to join in the other sessions that we have. I'm looking forward to this session by 3 p.m. and I think that's why I'm even really passionate about it, because there are things that we need to make sure are being said, and the best to be said. So thank you once again. My name remains Emma Nyekong. Philanthropy Circuits are always here and available to collaborate, to connect, to ensure that we are building a positive narrative for Africa and Africa philanthropy. Thank you so much, Susanna, for your support, for everyone else. If you want to, we'll be sure to follow up, do some follow-up with participants in this session. And like I said, Adaize's resources will be available. Any other resources that we think are important, we'll be sure to curate and share. I always like those kind of things. Congratulations to us on our launch, right? Thank you so much. Have a great time, everyone. Connect soon.